Yeah, I've read and was aware of different tax havens. Not that I'm some kind of super expert on it, but I've been exposed to different things on it. Um, there's been, a lot of things you hear about, money in the Cayman Islands, British Virgin Islands, uh, Belgium, Netherlands, Cyprus, Switzerland. I'm going to tell you, a lot of things have changed since 911. Um, the United States IRS wants to know everything that Americans have, period. Doesn't matter if it's in a foreign bank account or not. And I just want to point out something about this stuff. Um, well, they call this the F-bar filing requirements, foreign bank account filing requirements. Basically, you got to tell them every little penny that you got in a foreign bank account. It doesn't matter where it is. It doesn't matter if it's, in the British Virgin Islands or what. I mean, yeah, they're not going to report it any place. But if you get caught, you got a $10,000 non-filing penalty. And it could be for something over some stupid minor amount of interest. Now, will they actually fine you that much? I don't know. I mean, you could appeal it. But if you screw up, if you're doing large amounts of money, forget about it. But I do want to point out something here, not that I'm giving any tax advice or anything, but the IRS also allows an exemption for non-income producing properties such as artwork. Now, this is another reason the wealthy like jewelry versus bullion, because it's something you're collecting, pass it on generation to generation. It just sits there, but it still has value, and most of the time it goes up in value. And it could be even worth more because, it's something that wasn't produced today and it used to be produced 50 years ago. It's a special type of artwork. So if a person had a lot of wealth, they probably would want to, go this route. I mean, the bullion route, I personally like better because it's simple, it's recognizable. When you have something in the side, where it's like a artwork made out of precious metals, you might have a problem selling it right away. But still, it is totally off the books per se, and you can just hold on to it for so many years. And considering that it's going to be in a bull market for at least 2 or 3 more years, where can you go wrong? By that time, I don't know. There could be a global taxation entity. You're not going to have to report any gains on your metals as long as you don't recognize your profit and make a sale. If you're sitting on them, big deal. There's nothing illegal about that. Whereas if you have a foreign bank account someplace, even if it's producing some meager amount of interest, if you don't report something correctly, you got a $10,000 non-filing penalty. So I think there's a lot of disadvantages. And I'm going to tell you something. Things have actually changed about the so-called tax havens. And a lot of it came about later on after 911 and also in 2009 under different things that changed during the Obama administration. Taxpayers trying to bring a foreign account into compliance are finding the process difficult because it can mean getting up to 6 years worth of back statements from an overseas institutions that they have their money in. The statements are necessary to determine how much tax and interest is due. It's not worth it. So this is another article, and I know Cyprus used to be, well, not anymore, but like it was. And this article is actually dated from July 8th, 2011. I know it's like the European backwards date, right? But the president of Cyprus, Christofias, whatever, and Ukrainian president Yanukovych, I can't even say his name, agreed that the Ukrainian businesses can no longer minimize taxes in Cyprus. Now, Cyprus is also a place, a lot of Russian entities like to use as a tax haven too, because they go through Ukraine, Latvia, and all this type of stuff, and they could be set up in Cyprus or whatever, right? How it works is normally what it used to be, no longer. It grants the right to pay income taxes in the country in which the resident received an income. Simply put, you set up a company in Cyprus that makes money in Ukraine, but your resident, the company's a resident of Cyprus, so you got a registered agent that created the entity in Cyprus. You pay the tax in Cyprus, your native country, and you don't need to pay the tax a second time in Ukraine. So Cyprus taxes are lower than Ukraine. Now I remember from memory, the Cyprus corporate taxes were like 10%, and the European, I forgot what they were, but they're at least 2 or 3 times higher than that. I don't want to go by memory and state what it was, but I swear I remember the 10% on Cyprus. I'm going from memory now, but it was much, much lower than the rest of Europe. So you'd pay taxes. If you had your entity set up in Cyprus and you're doing all your business someplace else, but it's Cyprus entity, that's where you pay the taxes. Now also, there's another factor, and it's not mentioned in this article, that Greece is getting like totally pissed off with this deal because a lot of banks that are in Greece are dumping their money in Cyprus. So all kinds of stuff going on. So this deal all came to an end. So according to the new agreement on avoiding double taxation between the presidents of Ukraine and Cyprus, priority rights of taxation will be granted to the country where the income has been earned. So if you earn it in Ukraine, so even if the company is registered in Cyprus, if it earns money in Ukraine, it should be obligated to pay the taxes to the national budget of Ukraine. And if you want to put after-tax earnings into an account in Cyprus, go do so if you think it's to your advantage. So that ended that tax haven. So there's a lot of tax havens that are, just done with, BVI, British Virgin Island. Now, this is another one, but just another thing, though. They're getting a lot stricter. In other words, you just can't use this and not pay income taxes. It's not really like that. But the BVI is very good in that there are no capital gains taxes, inheritance taxes, or death duties in the territory. And he used the U.S. dollar as the currency. I believe it's the U.S. dollar is used as the currency. Yes, it is. U.S. dollar is adapted as used as the currency. Government revenues are derived from local income tax, import duties, stamp taxes, license fees, and company fees. The BVI, British Virgin Islands, are party to two double taxation treaties with Japan and Switzerland, which the United Kingdom had entered into many years ago. So basically, there is no tax on an entity that is established in the British Virgin Islands. But if you're an American and you have this entity over here, you're not going to be able to slide and make it look like you had no taxes because your entity was in BVI. It's not going to happen, okay? I mean, that's just how it is. So a lot of these things that people think happen don't happen. But I'm going to tell you one way there's a scam that goes on. You don't know who the hell's doing it, and I don't know anything about this, but another thing is about bearer bonds, right? It says they call it another problem in country attribution. In other words, another problem in trying to identify where these bonds are coming from is that many U.S. securities are issued directly abroad. Such securities can be issued as either registered or bearer form. They're not issued in the United States, but they're issued overseas, like in Belgium, and they could be in bearer form, bearer bonds. You think they're gone? They're not gone. They got stuff like this that exists in Europe, and nobody knows what the hell people have in wealth. But you don't know. Sometimes I wonder, how safe is all this stuff? I'd imagine if you had a lot of money wrapped up in this, I personally would never do. If I had all these money like some of these clowns have, I'd be going all precious metals practically. I don't trust this deal at all. And I think You know, like I said, I have a lot of respect for the sharpest Jewish businessmen, and you know, that little tidbit I got from Mark Faber about many's friends are Jewish and what they're doing is a lot of them seem to be very much more heavily on the precious metals or the stocks and mining of precious metals than the average goyim, if you want to just use that word. But hey, you know, I think those guys a lot of times they know what the hell's going on. I could see what's going on too. It's a no-brainer. Debt in a government and debt everywhere is going to destroy all these bonds at one point in time. Um, if securities are issued in a bearer or unregistered form, the owners of such securities do not have to make themselves known, and typically little or no information is available about them. Long-term bearer bonds securities cannot be issued in the United States, but U.S. firms can and do issue such securities abroad, like in Belgium. So almost all the 138 billion in securities attributed to country unknown in Table 5 on this chart I got off the U.S. Treasury are bearer securities. Now, that's some pretty good stuff to have, but the problem is, I don't want to say like I know all this stuff, but I was close to firsthand where people had a security that had like ridiculous amount of zeros on it, like with lots of millions, and they'd have a hard time transferring that money someplace. Try to cash this in if you got like millions of dollars in the security. Try cashing that in. You know, that's one reason I still say the bullion is the best deal in the world, because you can use little 1 ounce increments. You know, I think it's a hell of a lot smarter. Now, if you're really wanting to play ultra safe, is if you have something gold and it's in a form of an art, it's a statue or whatever it is. You know, it weighs 3 pounds or whatever, or you know, 1.5 kilos or whatever the heck it is, and you have this thing. You could say it's art. You could say it's art, and it's, you know, doesn't mean anything till you go sell it. You know, it might be, but I think that's a much slicker idea too. But you know, as far as like people trying to, you know, hide money with securities and stuff, I'd imagine there's a lot of stuff goes on everywhere, and it's a matter of, you know, I guess who gets caught and who doesn't get caught. And you know, you hear a lot of stories that Max Kaiser alludes to, but yeah, a lot of this stuff is true, you know. But the thing is, it is legal, but you know, it's not legal if you're not, like, so for instance, if you have this bearer bond and you're not reporting it, you're in violation of, you know, your foreign account, this taxation at your board, your FBAR filing requirements. So, you know, people, I don't know, whatever they do, they take their risk or whatever. But you know, if you have precious metals in the form of an artwork, you're totally legal. So I think the precious metals are much smarter. And you know, I don't think any of these bonds are going to double in value, whereas I think the precious metals are. So that's definitely the slickest way to go. But these people got a lot of money. They don't do that. They don't do that. They like paper. They like being able to, you know, go in their account online or whatever, see what's going on. You know, they are trained so much in their head that physical precious metals and things like that are not really money. They're basically jewelry, things like that. They will not touch this stuff. But I just wanted to also bring out a little bit more, embellish on the so-called tax havens. They're not there the way they used to be, because this thing with the foreign bank account filing requirements, this came about in 2009, and that's when they were trying to go after people that had these Swiss accounts, and they were talking like, oh, that was just an attack on you know, the Swiss banks and their autonomy, so they couldn't keep secret what's going on with the people's money over there. But like I said, you know, it's anything electronic is not that safe. That's the way I look at it. You're better off with the physical metals. And, I have to hand it to them. The Jewish businessmen, the top ones on the top of their game. They're doing the right thing. They're doing the right thing. A lot of them are more into that stuff. And, most people aren't. They're doing the wrong thing. But, still, I could just want to repeat again, it is possible there's still things out there where they have bearer bonds and stuff like that. But as far as the tax havens, they don't exist like they used to. That stuff's kind of old news. There really isn't, there is no really such thing as a legal tax haven the way they used to be with the British Virgin Islands, Cayman Islands, and Swiss bank accounts, and you know Cyprus. It's not the same deal. A lot of stuff has changed in recent years, and if you try to bypass the system, I mean, even if you even if you like blow it by like $100 or something like that, you can get a $10,000 fine. So is that worth it? No, definitely not. But whereas if you put some precious metals and you have them in the form of artwork, you're in the clear. You're in the clear because you just hold on to that, and the only time you have to recognize income on that is when you go sell the precious metals that are like in a form of artwork, and you're safe.